स्टार्ट करूं? Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. I'm Anisha Mohanty, the Joint Secretary for MLSA SRM, and I'm very happy to welcome you on behalf of my Joint Secretary, my entire core team, and my entire team of Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors SRM. Before we start off, I'd like to give you a brief look into what we do at MLSA SRM. Some of you might have attended yesterday's session, while for some of you, this might be the first session you're attending. Basically, what we do is in a gist events, workshops, competitions, but it is so much more than that. What you see on the screen right now is the highlights of our past year, all of our events, workshops, online and offline. Journey started in 2014 when Microsoft student partners, as they were known back then, had started off the club on the campus of SRM. While I won't be taking you through the journey from 2014 to 2020, I'll be showcasing to you the events that we have had from the start of 2020 and what you can expect in the upcoming future. In February, we had a big data analytics and product modeling workshop, which was a hands on offline workshop and was taken on campus itself, followed by March Bytes 2020, which was a 2-day event which included app development workshops, which were hands on, along with AR, VR technologies workshops, which were in collaboration with newer industries. This was followed by our first online workshop on April 2020, which was a personal branding and resume building workshop by the head of global internships at Microsoft, Miri Rodriguez. Following up to May, while this wasn't a workshop, it was the ultimate designing challenge anybody at SRM has ever seen. It resulted in a few talented members getting dribble invites, and I assure you they are putting those invites to very good use. Last event, September 2020, was Get Some Rest. It was a workshop on building REST APIs from scratch and deploying them in Azure, which brings us to today. SpookyPy. If you attended yesterday's session, which was day one, it was on basis of introduction to Python as well as the making of a hangman game. If you did not, don't worry, you have joined into an amazing session already. So stay tuned. What does a technical club do other than events? We do projects, chatbots, mental health applications, budget trackers, you name it, and we already have it. And as it says on the screen, if we don't, we're probably already working on it. Lexicon was an auto tagger which our team worked on. SRM Eats is our own innovation to bring the delicious food that SRM has to its students, and Atlas is our chatbot for our own website. If you have heard of Here For You, it is a mental health application that we created in association with the psychiatrists at the Department of Psychiatry in SRM Hospital. I'm proud to say that we have had 12 plus projects in the year of 2020, and you can be sure that you'll be seeing a few more coming your way before the year ends. Now, we have talked enough about the club itself. Coming to the speakers. Today's speakers, Jugal and Sachit, will be taking you through the building of a snake game, which Sachit will be covering, and Jugal will be covering the introduction to Git and GitHub, which is an essential to most of us. Yesterday's session was taken by Aris and Kushagra, and they covered a number of wonderful topics, and I assure you, you can expect the same from today. Our sponsors for this event, I'm proud to announce, are the Soul Store, who are a gifting partner for the event, and you can expect to see something special in your inboxes after the event ends from them. And I would like to thank Happy Crafts too, Happy Craft Stationery, to be the event partner for SpookyPy. I won't take up much of your time before the workshop anymore. Please stay tuned on our social media. The handles can be found on the screen right now. Over to you, Sachit.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sachit, and today we are going to be building the classic arcade world famous snake game in Python. Yesterday, we conducted a workshop going through the basics of Python, and today we're going to be diving deeper into lists, tuples, a few basic data structures, and control flows to make the snake game logic. We're going to be using a module called curses in Python. Recalling what modules are, basically just pre-written reusable code in the form of classes and functions. The stuff you import at the top of your Python code. Right. So let's discuss the basic game logic first and foremost. Since we don't have a blackboard and a pen, we are going to be using the OG MS Paint itself. All right. So this is going to be the box or the boundary that the snake is going to slither in. This is the first thing we see in a snake game, right? Then we have the main character, main star of the show, the snake itself, and then we have its food. Now there are three rules to this game. Uh, just three rules to govern this entire world famous game. The first one, the snake eats the food, grows larger and faster. The second, if the head of the snake or the body of the snake hits the boundary of the box, game is over. If the snake overlaps itself or runs over itself, the game is over. As simple as that. All right, so how are we going to make this happen? I mentioned earlier we're going to be using curses in this workshop. So what does curses exactly do? Curses is a screen painting, keyboard handling, text-based terminal that forms grids. Now, grids are basically stuff like graph paper you might have come across in class 11th and 12th. We have X and Y coordinates on a graph paper. Coordinate geometry. I know it was a pretty stressful chapter in which you had to take out slopes and intercepts and whatnot. We're not going to do that in this workshop. We are simply just going to be forming a lot of grids on our terminal. And then we are going to use these grids to form and draw out the snake itself. The X's represent the snake, and the zero, kind of like an egg shape, represents the food that the snake is going to eat. Sorry if my drawing is bad. I dropped out in class 2 from MS Paint classes, so sorry about that. All right, cool. So now, first of all, we need to install this thing called curses, right? So how are we going to do that? As discussed in the previous workshop, you just fire up CMD. I'm going to open this up and enlarge this for you. All right. Now, the mods will type this command for you. It's pip install Windows curses. In the chat, you can see this command. Just go ahead and press enter on this. I already have this module, so it's probably going to say requirement satisfied. All right, so I have this module. It says requirement satisfied. For you guys, for those of you who don't have this, I'm going to wait around probably 1 minute, and then we'll resume from there. You can see the command in the chat box below, or to the right, whoever is using PC on the right, whoever is using mobile on the down below. Cool. So now that we have this over here, what we require is VS Code. We need to open up VS Code. So the easiest way is to just form a text document, and we'll name this snake.py and save this on your desktop. If it says it needs to change the extension, go ahead, press yes, because we want this to be a Python file. All right. So in the command prompt, talking about the basics, right now we're on the desktop. We've saved this file. So if you want to run any file, you already know the command to that is Python and the name of the file. So right now we are in this C directory with users and then the username. So what we are going to do right now is usually after the username, the desktop folder is saved. So we are going to change this directory. So change directory cd. We're going to do that, and then we're going to type desktop. If you've saved this on your desktop, it'll be there. So now it'll change over to desktop. If you have saved this elsewhere, if maybe supposing you have a folder right here, it says new folder. So you can go ahead and then type cd, um, press tab, then another tab, then you have new folder. Since this has a space in it, therefore we have these quotation marks. It'll go into the new folder. Um, Now, since it's not in the new folder, we can type something like this, and then it'll exit out of the new folder. And now we're back to the desktop. All right, now since this is now for those of you who have Visual Studio configured like this, a simple double click on this would do, and it would open VS Code. If not, then you can go ahead and click open with, then Visual Studio Code right here. We'll have this poor man's split screen we're going to go with, because we are not going to be using the traditional terminal for this. I know you guys are used to the traditional terminal, but we are going to be using the command prompt for this, because the curses library, different terminals are coded differently. So therefore, command prompt can handle curses better than VS Code's terminal. That's why we're going to be using command prompt of your PC. All right, so let's type a very simple program, print hello world. And let's save this. And now we want to run this Python file. So go ahead, type python snake.py and run this. And there we go. We can see the hello world. So this script right here that we wrote works. Now we can actually get into the coding stuff. So if you guys are done installing curses, we can go ahead and import curses. So import curses. Guys, if you have installed curses, you can type yes in the chat. That would tell me that you've downloaded it and you've installed it and you're ready to go. All right. So, okay, so we have imported curses now. Curses needs a kind of an initialization. So for that, right now we are going to just initialize the terminal and how it's going to look on the command prompt. So for that, we are going to type out some certain commands. I'm going to explain what each of them does. So curses.init.scr. Right here, if you hover over to this, you can see that it initializes the library. It just means that it invokes all the functions and the classes that are inside curses library, and nothing too special. Okay, curses.noEcho. This command is especially important because whenever you type something on the command prompt, it is going to register those keystrokes. We don't want it to repeat those characters while we are moving around the snake. So that's what this does. Then curses.curseSet, and then we'll set this to 0. On the command prompt, you can see that there's a cursor right here. Wherever I click, there's this rectangular white box that appears. This has an opacity of 1 right here. 1 for normal visible, 2 for very visible. I haven't tried this. Probably makes it really contrasty. We are going to go with 0 for invisible. We don't want the cursor to interrupt our gameplay. All right, so Windows, oops, I think I pressed the caps lock. Windows, win, uh, we're going to have this as a variable. And now we are actually going to draw out a screen. So the command for that is curses, new win. Then we are going to put arbitrary values. Here it takes number of lines, then number of columns. So first rows, then columns. So just random values. And then right here, if we see, we have a lot of rows. Rows that go down and columns that go from left to right. So we have a 0, 0 over here. And the values that we've typed over here are 20, 60. So right here. An important thing to note over here is that these values, the number of rows over here and the number of columns, seem to suggest that this is in the format of y, x and not x, y. So please bear that in mind. We're going to start with 0, 0. So the first thing over here, first coordinate over there. Then we're going to have windows.keypad. Yes, we're using the keyboard, therefore win keypad. And then 1 for yes. We don't want a border surrounding our screen. We don't want a double border. So we'll go ahead and type 0 for this. And then lastly, this is again a very important command. It says no delay. We would not wait for the next user input and continue our game as it is. So this is going to be returning 1, more on this later. And now we actually come to the juicy part, making the game itself. So right here. All right, so we are going to be having a loop, a big loop that is going to do all the stuff for us. So while true, this is going to be an infinite loop, but don't worry, we are going to code into this and make this finite later on. We'll just test out whatever we've written till now. So event is equal to, we are going to be waiting for this input, get character, waits for the character. If event is, this is how curses takes the input. So if event is equal to q, if I type q on my keypad or the keypad is how curses understands the keyboard as. We are gonna be breaking out of this loop. All right, this is our entire loop. Then we're gonna have curses dot end win, or breaking out of the entire thing and de-initializing the library as this says. And then we're going to be simply printing out our score. We're going to have an F string, so a formatted string right here, which has score equal to just one simple score. This is how we use this F string. You've seen strings, normal strings, but this is a special type of a string. You've seen a $sign in Java, right, which takes in values. This is very similar to that. So we name the variable over here, and then we just define this variable score equal to 0. And that's about it. Let's test out this ginormous 18-line code that we've written. All right, hit Control S. This is probably going to give some errors, but don't worry. Command prompt can handle all these errors because this error says module curses does not have a no echo member, but command prompt realizes that it actually does have a no echo method. So if you just run this, you'll get something like this, which is exactly what we want. This is the boundary just like this, and it has invisible grids because we don't have a border for grids, which is excellent for us. Now when we press Q, it is going to quit and we are going to have this score as 0 as printed by this. So far, so good. Now we actually need the snake itself, right? Uh, so how are we going to go about coding that? As I mentioned, we are going to be using data structures. So we are going to go ahead and have something like snake equal to, all right, so let's discuss a little bit about data structures. This is a coordinate. This x, if you're specifically looking at this x is placed inside a coordinate having coordinates x comma y, something, right? And we have three x's. So a list of coordinates, we can roughly say, we're going to be having a list, of course, and then we are going to be using what's called a tuple. Tuple is basically immutable, so at initialization, we don't want to change this value. And also Python has got a few optimizations for tuples, so it's going to make the game faster. And it is going to, you can say it's going to enhance the FPS, PS5, anyone. Please put it in the chats if you're a fan of PS5, because I know that looks pretty awesome to me, at least. All right, so we're going to be having different coordinates over here, just some random coordinates. So initializing the snake, it's in a straight line right here. So since it's y comma x, we're going to be having 4 comma 9, and over here as well 4 comma 8. So you can see that this would be in a horizontal line since the y is constant over here and the x is changing. So 10 is actually, if you think about it, it's going to be further to the right from 0. So 10 is actually this coordinate right here. This is 10, this is 9, this is 8. So if you guys can see that this would actually be the head if it is going in this direction, which is exactly what we want. Then we're going to be having a food. So food is just one coordinate right over here. So 10 comma 20 would be the position of a food. Well and good. All right, now we are going to be drawing this out on the terminal. So for that, we require a for. Okay, let's discuss a little bit about loops. Why are we using for in this? And why are we using while over here? So this is all from my experience. We use while when we don't know how a certain thing is going to end, a certain loop is going to end, and we use for when we know for certain how it's going to end. So for C, for coordinates in snake, we know that snake is a finite list, means it ends somewhere. So for C in snake, it is going to end at this exact tuple right here. And while we're using for the entire loop, because we don't know when the player is going to crash into the boundary or run over itself. So that is exactly, and that is precisely why we use while. And that's why we're using for over here. Or Curses has this neat little thing that adds characters to the screen and in specific coordinates, as you can see. Right here, we are going to be using the first coordinate of the tuple. So C of 0. What this means is C is a tuple and the 0th index of the tuple is actually 4. So we are retrieving the value of 4. And then, as you can guess, the first index, which is going to be 10, we're going to be taking that from over here. Now we will just place an asterisk to represent the snake so that we don't get confused. If we use an X, we might get confused between the coordinate and the X itself. So this is going to draw out a snake. For the food, we can just have Windows win, add character, and then food of 0. So the first value, and then the second value. Then we're gonna be having an O to represent this. Cool and good. Let's test this out. All right. So I don't know if I've told you this, but this is again a very nice trick in CMD that if you press up and down, you can actually navigate through the commands you've written already. So this is a pretty cool trick, saves a lot of time. We don't have to type python snake.py again. You just press up arrow key and then enter. And then there we go, we have our snake and we have a food. Snake is looking pretty sharp actually, pretty good. Okay, now when we press Q, we exit back and there we go, score equal to 0 again. And we have everything set up. Okay, so now we want the arrow keys to give directions and basically the snake to move, right? And before that, we're going to make things a little prettier. I don't exactly like how we press Q for quitting. Since this is a classic game, we should have an escape key for that, right? So we've always pressed escape key on Prince of Persia and whatnot. So we're going to be having an escape key to escape the sequence. So SC is equal to 27. This is actually the key code for escape key. Every key is bound to a certain key code. More on that later. Key is equal to, now we want this direction to actually go right. So we initialize this by mentioning key is equal to curses dot key right. Um, this is the key that we are going to be using in the starting of the game. This is going to be the initializing key. So if you observe that the snake always moves in a certain direction, a predefined direction. So this is going to be exactly that. And then since this is an infinite loop, we don't want this to be an infinite loop. We want, again, a well-defined escape sequence. So if key is not equal to escape, right? Uh, then we run this entire thing. If key is equal to escape, we just break. So we remove this from the sequence. All right, there we go. Now to make things again a little better on the entire terminal that we have, we are going to be making the score visible to the user. So again, a neat little trick that Curses has to display strings onto the terminal is this command right here. We're going to be having score written right here. So 0, 2, that's the coordinate that we're going to be using. So 0 right on top and just a little indent from the right, from the left, sorry. And then we're going to be having score plus. We have learned about casting, right? So since score is an integer right here, we're going to be casting that into a string and we're going to be having that as the score. So this is going to be showing us score is equal to and then score. And then I think we can test this out. go ahead and you should get this thing right over here. Looks kind of nice. I like this. We can also have a little bit of space because it looks kind of jammed. So press escape. Oh, we didn't save this, right? So that's why I'm going to restart this terminal because I think I might have gone into an infinite loop. You can do this too if you run into an infinite loop. So okay, cool. This is a little too big. CD desktop and then Python snake. Okay. Here we have run into an error of some sort. We're going to delete this and we might run this again. All right. What is exactly causing this error? First is return null. Okay, how about we control Z into everything and we're going to remove this escape sequence right here and maybe that is going to give us. Okay. Let's test this out again. Oh wait, we haven't saved this again. This seems to be a little tricky right here. If you guys are getting this error, please put it in the chat. Okay, let's roll back the entire thing. Okay, right. So it seems that we have hit a kind of a dead end, which is giving us this error right here. Why would this return null? All right, so we're going to be taking a little break right here. And if you guys have come up to this point, really nice. We're going to be getting back to you really soon. Okay. Sorry guys for the minor hiccup. The problem was actually because of the command prompt zooming. The zooming was a little too much and the screen was not able to uh, come in that compact space. That's why it was throwing up really weird errors. So now that that is rectified, we can move on with our code. So what you have right now is the perfect code. You don't have to change anything. If you guys are getting that error, you can minimize or zoom out in your command prompt a little bit. That should then hopefully go away. Um, okay, and then the food we had represented with O. Right. Uh, we also had this as escape sequence right here. And then we had, right, we printed out a score on the top. So win dot add string 0,2, we had that. And then we had score written on top. Plus casting of the actual score. Plus a little bit of space right here. Cool. Then let's talk a little bit about game engines and how they actually process the games and stuff. Because since we have the PS5 that has been declared and it's out, and I've seen the unboxing and it's really, really nice. It looks pretty furbished and it looks awesome. So let's talk a little bit about games and how they work. So we have really popular engines or open source engines that run that basically have indie game developers working on them. So we have Unreal Engine and then we have Unity. So Unity has this update method which is called on every frame that refreshes every frame, and it again waits for input or it doesn't, and the game just seamlessly keeps on going on. For this terminal, we don't have, for this snake game, we don't have frames, but we do have something that refreshes really, really quickly. And that is curses, again, neat little trick, which is Windows timeout. We are going to set this as 100. So this is 100 milliseconds. And I've seen that I've worked around this, and I feel that 100 is actually, it mimics the snake gameplay really well. Of course, the game hastens as we progress, but that might just be a little too complex. So we can just have this 100 right here. So this is 100 milliseconds for every frame. We don't have frames in the terminal, but we do have a refresh going on. So this is going to refresh the screen. Now we have something called, so if we are going in this direction, we want to know that when we change directions, what was the previous direction, right? So the previous key we pressed is going to be key. This is not an equal to sign in programming. This is an assignment operator. So this is not the traditional maths that we are used to. The key, the value of key, which is an integer, will go into the previous key. As I mentioned before, keys have values bound to integers. So key is equal to event. Now we want the next key. So key is equal to event if event is equal to minus, is not equal to -1. So this function right here, no delay, win.noDelay, it returns -1 when it does not encounter a key. So if event is not equal to -1, again, win.getCharacter, it's going to get -1 continuously. So if it's not equal to -1, that means the user has pressed a key, the player has pressed a key. And we're going to have that in else. We have previous key. So whatever the key the user has pressed. A lot of beta testing goes on in games, and people or players want to try out different things, right? So we might press a lot of other keys to test out what exactly the game does. Uh, to from to prevent players from doing that, we will have a restriction. Um, so as to not change the key way too often and confuse the game. If key not in a list of keys. So the list of keys we're going to be using is the arrow keys, right? So we can have curses dot key left, curses dot key right, up and down. So curses, it's as simple, dot key up, and then curses dot key down. Down right there. And then let's not forget our escape sequence, which is ESC. So ESC right here. Okay. So if the key is not in this, we're gonna have key is equal to previous key, because the value of the previous key will go inside key and nothing will be changed. So if you press O, if you press H, if you press anything on your keypad, it will not register that key. The previous key will go inside the key value and it will only go in the direction that you want it to go in. All right. Now that we have this, we can see the output right here. So open up your terminal, and then hopefully we should be able to see that the score is showing really nicely. This is drawn out and we have O as well. Okay, now what we want is to actually get the snake moving. All right. We will just set this up one more time because we went inside an infinite loop. The desktop, wherever you've saved this. We'll just have that written right there. And then we can now actually get the snake's coordinates so that we can make it move. So for this, we're going to be using calculate next coordinates. Comments, I do recommend that you type comments in your own code. This is just for referential purposes, and it just makes the code a little more easy to understand. So we can have this as snake of x, or actually 0. Snake is going to be this. We're going to take this tuple right here, and then the first value. So this is always going to be taking the head basically of the snake, and then its y value. So right here 4. Similarly for x, we can have something like snake of 0, and this has to be 1. So it retrieves the value 10 from over here. Cool. Now we want to move this inside the grid, right? So we know that this is 0, 0, 20, 60, this point, and everything in between is like a gradient, right? So if this moves up, it goes towards 0, and if this moves down, it goes towards 60. So when it goes down, it increments the value of y, and if it goes up, it decrements the value. Similarly, on the x-axis, if it goes to the right, it's moving towards, sorry, this would be 20, it's moving towards 60. So this is going to be +1. And if it's moving towards the left, it is going to have the value, it's going towards 0. So that's going to be a -1. Since we have that ready, we can have if key equal to cursor's key down. If we move down, we had this as +1. So cursor's key down. We're going to have y plus equal to 1. Um, a neat little trick in VS Code is that you don't actually have to highlight and then press Control C and then Control V. You can directly just go to this line, press Control C, it will copy the entire line for you. You don't have to highlight it. And then when you press Control V, it'll be right there. You want this as up. And we discussed that it'll decrement the value of y. Decrement, sorry. Then again, press Control V. Have this x minus equal. Since it's going left, it's going to decrement the value. We have right. The value is going to increase. Right. There we go. And then we are simply going to insert the value. So 0, comma, and then the tuple, which would be y, comma, x. All right. So in lists, we usually have the append method, snake.append. But here we are using insert because we want to get this in the first element of the entire list. And hence we have insert. Append usually puts the element into the last of the list. So we are going to be using insert over here. This will actually make the code a bit easier, but insert is generally not preferred in Python because it has to move every element one place to the right to actually insert the value, and append is much simpler. It uses, it just places the element right at the end, so it does not have to do a lot of shifting. So if your lists are very large, then please do not use insert. Use append. Use some optimized version of append. Insert is not what you want to go with, but for the scope of this workshop, we are going to be using insert. Okay. Now we discussed that the game breaks if you hit the end, the border of the box, right? So we are going to be coding that. So we are going to be checking for border. If y equal to 0, we'll break, because this means that the y coordinate, the head is at this point, which means it has to break the sequence. We have to get out of the loop and just display the score, right? Because the player has lost. Okay, so I have maximized the screen so you guys can see better. Right. Now you guys can see line number 24. It's just if key not in the list of all the keys that are over here. It's just up, left, right, up and down, and then also escape. We want to hit escape, and then we are going to break out of the loop. So, right. Now we'll continue if everybody has this down. All right, so we were exactly over here. So again, if the coordinate x is 0, we will again break. What about the other side? Because y0 is this line and x0 is this line. So the other side, this side, is for x, this side is actually 59, and for y, this side is 19. This is because we want to break just before the coordinates of the head hits the boundary. So if x equal to 19, x is equal to 59, break. And if y equal to 19, we'll again break. Cool. Now, then the next condition was if the snake runs over itself. So if the snake runs over itself, how do we break the sequence? How do we check if the snake has eaten itself? There's a really neat trick in Python that we can use. It's called list slicing, and it basically is, it forms subsets of lists, sublists inside lists. So you have snake. The way we use it is :1 else break. Now what this does is it checks, except for head, which is 0, it checks every other element inside. Say suppose this is the element 0, it is going to check for x, the second element and the third element as well. So if the head overlaps or equals, if the head is inside the list of the other elements, then we will break, because then we are sure that the snake has eaten itself somewhere or has broken the chain somewhere. So this is going to be the format in which we are going to be writing this code. Just one line, very simple. All right. Now the first rule, going back to the first rule, we'll see if it has actually eaten the food. So check if snake has eaten the food. Right. So if snake of 0 food. So if it sees that the snake of 0, the coordinates, is equal to the food, which means that the head of the snake is on the food, therefore it has eaten it. So first of all, the easiest part, we'll just increment the score. We'll also have the food as an empty tuple, because then we'll have to reassign the coordinates again. All right, so we'll have a while loop over here because we don't know when the food is going to appear. Now you might say that, okay, since the snake has already eaten the food, we know where the food is, when the food is going to appear. It's going to appear just after the snake has eaten the food. But what if the instantiation of the food is on inside the snake, right? you get to a crazy massive level and a score where you have a very serpentine snake. Right? The food, it's a possibility that the food will get instantiated onto the list of coordinates of the snake. So we don't want that to happen. So while food is an empty tuple, um, right? Food is equal to, we're going to be using the random module here. So from random, we did this in the previous workshop. Um, from this random library, we just want the rand int function or class. So we can have an import rand int. So this is exactly what you're going to be using if you want to import this. So if you want rand int, you can have rand int over here. It takes a value from 1 to, we'll have this as 18. So just before the border, then we'll have, so that the snake has some space to move uh, once it has eaten the food. Otherwise, it's, if the food is instantiated just at the border, it'll just eat the food and die. So what's the point, right? So 1 comma 59, so 58. All right, there we go. All right, while food is equal to, I'm sorry about that. Okay, now if we have the food inside the snake, um, the food is going to be an empty tuple because then we won't be able to instantiate it. And if it is an empty tuple, this while will again get activated and it'll check for another random integer which is not inside the snake. And this is why we use while over here. Then we just add the when character in place of food. So add h and the food. The first value of the tuple, then the second, and we're going to be representing this by a O. Else we just move the snake around, right? So the code for that is moving the snake. That'll be last is equal to snake.pop. This will pop the last element of the snake. So to get a motion like sequence, if you want to move in front, we will actually insert this as we did before, and then we will get rid of this. So this would give us a motion like feeling that it has actually moved forward, right? So pop the last element, and then when at last, but we are going to just replace the last element by nothing. So just one space. We're going to be removing this. We're going to be removing this. And then we're going to be taking this thing right onto the top. So right here will be instantiate our food. And I think we're mostly done. We're done. So let's test this out. And if there are no errors, we'd definitely be lucky. Okay, So this just seems to instantiate and then go back. All right. We'll debug this code right here. Hardly ever is there a code that you type out and it works 100% on the first go. Okay. I think we have everything right here. Could be the escape sequence. So we'll just have this as while true. Why not? Okay. Oh, it's not the escape sequence then. All right, we'll be taking a short break and I'll just figure out how this works. Okay, another small minor hiccup. It was not colon 1, it was actually 1 colon, so it checks all the elements in the list from the right end. Um, and writing down the last line of the snake, we have um, win.addchar um, snake. Since snake is a list and a tuple, so snake a list of tuples. So this snake to the list, the first element of the list, then the y coordinate, then snake uh, 0 with 1, and then we have um, the asterisk sign that we're going to be using to represent the snake. Okay, cool. Now this should finally work. Okay, there we go. There we have the entire snake. Uh, if the code works for you, well and good. You can actually make a high score and then put it on your story, tagging MLSA, and we will sure to recognize, and we'll see if you have the highest score. We'll nominate the highest score and tag them on our stories. All right, so now in the next section, you will learn how to add this thing on your GitHub, and you'll have a snake project to your GitHub. So uh, Jugal will be actually taking the session for that, and the entire code will be there with Jugal, and you guys can put that on your GitHub. So thank you for tuning in. Hope the code works for you, and um, Jugal. Jugal will be taking over.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second half of this session. I'm Jugal. I'm a technical associate and also the associate creative lead at MLS And today we are going to talk about Git and GitHub, and I'm going to give you guys a brief introduction to Git and GitHub, why they are important, and also how to use them. Okay, so before I begin my session, I'll just recommend you guys to stay till the very end because we have a surprise contest for you guys. And if you stay till the end, you can be eligible to win some really cool prizes. So make sure you stay till the very end. Okay. So so let's begin now. So let's just start off by looking at some basic terms and concepts that you must know about the Git ecosystem, and we'll also see the application of these concepts. So I think most of you would know what these terms are, but for those of you who don't know, I'm going to explain each and every one for you. So the first term that we're going to talk about is a repository. So I will be using these terms a lot in the session over the course of this session. So just so you guys don't get confused, I'm going to explain you what these terms are. So the first one is a repository. So a repository is nothing but a folder which contains all the files and folders related to a project. So suppose I'm working on a website and I saved all the files related to the website in a particular folder. So that folder will be known as the repository for my website. So in the programming world, we use we use repository when we refer to a folder containing a project file. Okay, so the next four terms are not terms, but they are commands which we use in the terminal. And I know most of you would be familiar with them, but I will just give you a brief explanation of what they are. So the first one is known as ls. So it is very simple. It just lists all the files and folders which are present in a particular directory, or as we call it, the working directory. So the working directory is the directory in which you are currently in. So ls will list all the files and folders which are present in there. So the next one is known as cd, and it stands for change directory. It stands for change directory. And basically, if you want to enter a different directory, then you can use that command, and you can just say cd followed by the name of the directory to enter it. The next one is known as mkdir. And what mkdir is used for? So mkdir is used for creating a new directory. We'll look at each of them later in the session, but just know that these things exist. So the next one is known as touch. Touch is used to create a new file. We can create literally any file with any extension with the touch command, and we'll also use it later. Okay, so the next two terms are really important, and they are basically what this session is about. So the first one is Git. Okay, so before I explain you guys what are Git and GitHub, uh, it's a very common misconception between people, and they usually get confused between Git and GitHub. So let's just make the difference very clear here before we go ahead into this session. So Git is a tool that is used to maintain a repository, while GitHub, on the other hand, it is a website which is used to host your repository online. So I think the difference is pretty clear here. We can use GitHub. Sorry, you can use Git without GitHub, but GitHub is in some way dependent on Git to work. So basically, GitHub is a website while Git is a tool. So I hope you guys are clear with all these terms. If you guys are clear, then you can just say yes in the chat. Or if you have any doubts, then you can just write it in the chat. Our moderators will help you out. Okay, so I see a lot of yeses in the chat. So let's go ahead with the session now. Okay, so before I start explaining what Git is, I want you guys to be familiar with something that is known as a version control system, or VCS. So, so what is a version control system? A version control system is nothing but a tool which is used to track the changes that you make in your repository, and it also helps you to collaborate with other people on projects together. So it is a tool which with which programmers interact on a daily basis, where they can keep a tab of all the changes that were made to their code, and they can they can use it to fix bugs or run tests on the repository. So let's just say I'm working on an app and I wrote code for a newer version, and let's say the new version has a lot of bugs in it, and basically it's not a stable version, and so I want to go back to the previous version. So this is where a version control system comes in, and basically with a version control system I can go back to the previous version. So I wouldn't have to go to each and every file and delete all the code that I wrote to create the new version. I won't do that. That's a really long task, and this is the purpose for which version control systems exist. So I will just write a simple command, and it will take me back to how my code was in the previous version. This is how version control systems can be really useful. And as you can see on the screen, they provide you answers to questions like what changes were made, who made those changes, when were the changes made, and why were those changes needed. So a version control system is your answer to all these questions. So I hope you guys understood what a version control system is. If you have, then say yes in the chat. Okay, so I can see a lot of yeses in the chat. So let's just move ahead. So let's just talk about Git now. Finally, so basically there are two types of version control systems. The first one is known as a centralized version control system, and the second one is known as a distributed version control system. So what is a centralized version control system? A centralized version control system is a version control system which requires all the people who are collaborating on a project to be on the same network. So it is more useful when you are working in a company and all the people are present in the same building and they can be on the same network and contribute to a common repository. So a centralized version control system has a lot of limitations, which is why it is not so popularly used. And to overcome the limitations of a centralized version control system, we have something known as a distributed version control system. So a distributed version control system gives you all the features of a centralized version control system, but on top of that, it also allows you to work from anywhere in the world. You can contribute to a repository from anywhere in the world, from any time zone. So you don't need to be on the same network as others. So it is a very big advantage that a distributed version control system has. So Git is an example of a distributed version control system. So now let's talk about the features of Git, what features Git offers us. So as I mentioned earlier, we can keep a track of different versions. We can coordinate work between multiple developers. So this is very useful when you're working in a team, when you're working on a collaborative project, and it helps you to when people make changes to the code base, something so Git is really helpful so that the changes are reflected in the in the repositories of all the people who are working on that project. As I mentioned earlier, you can also revert the changes that were made. So let's just say I added a really useful, I added a really useless feature to my app, like Instagram recently added the Reels feature. Don't call me out on that. I personally think that it is a very useless feature. So let's just say I added a very useless feature and I want to go back to the previous version of my app. So I can do that with the help of Git. And the next feature is we can see who made what changes and when. So this is something that Git keeps a track of. And then I can also back up my code. So if you're working on your project and you wrote a lot of code, but you made a lot of mistakes and you just messed up the entire code. So you don't have to worry about deleting all that code and going back to the working version. You can just back up your code and you can freely experiment on your code. So the next feature it helps us to experiment on the project without breaking the main code. So this is something which is known as branches in Git. I won't go into much detail about branches because it is out of the scope of this session. But I will just give you a brief explanation of what a branch is. So basically, whenever you work on Git, you work on a repository, you are on a certain branch. So by default, the branch is known as master. In Git, the default branch is known as master. So you can create different branches if you want to experiment on the code. But the code in the default branch, which is the master branch in our case, won't be affected by the changes you make in the other branches. So if you want to experiment on your project, then you can use different branches. Okay, so I hope the features of Git are clear. If it is, then you can just say yes in the chat. Also, I hope I'm not going too fast and everyone is able to understand everything. Okay, I can see some yeses. That means you guys have understood. You guys are really smart. That's great. So let's move ahead. Okay, so now let's just talk about the working of Git and how Git works. So just imagine that Git. So just for a moment, just imagine that Git is not a tool that is on your machine. It's a camera. So what does a camera do? A camera clicks pictures and it just saves all the scenery that you are clicking. So this is really similar to how Git works. So just think of Git as a camera, and what it does, it takes it captures your code at a certain point. So basically, Git takes snapshots of your files in your repository, and it saves the state of code when you decide to take a snapshot. So basically, it's doing nothing but it's just taking snapshots of your code, and it's just saving the state of your code whenever you decide. And these snapshots, by the way, are really detailed. It knows every little detail, every character of code, every line of code is being tracked by Git. So even if you delete one character from your code, it will detect it and it will say that, oh look, you have made a change, and it will notice it. So it is very accurate when it comes to, measuring the differences between your code, between the different versions of your code. So how do you decide when to take the snapshot of your code? So this is where the term commit comes in. So let's just understand this. So when someone says I made a commit, basically they're referring to taking a snapshot of their code. They're saving the state of their code while they're working on the repository. So when you make a commit, you save the current state of your code, and Git will it will say, okay, you have made a commit, and so it will basically just save all the it will basically save how your code is at that point. Also, another important feature that Git offers is that you can visit any snapshot at any time. So I explained you guys, you can go back to any version over the whenever you created it, basically. Also, another thing I would like to add is that these commits are not just simple commits. They are accompanied with something that is known as commit messages. So commit messages basically add meaning to your commits. So they are like captions which you put to pictures. They're really similar. When you write a commit message, it adds a meaning to your commit. So if you are just browsing through a repository and you're looking at all the commits that you have made, a commit message makes it easier to understand what the commit was about. So let's say I'm working on a website and I added a login feature to that website, and I made a comment after I am done working with the login feature, and I made a commit, and for the commit message I'm going to write add login feature. So it will add meaning to my commit, and it will show all the people who are looking at my repository that what the commit was about. So that was how Git works. So I hope you guys understood it. If you did, then you can say yes in the chat. Okay, so Aryan Shankar is asking that is Git bash a terminal like command prompt? So it's not exactly like command prompt, but there are a few differences which we'll look into later in this session. So I see all of you have understood how Git works. So let's just have a look at a few basic Git commands that you must know. Okay, so these commands that you see on your screen are a few basic commands that you should know, that you must know before getting started with Git. So the first one is known as git init. So Git won't just work out of the box in my repository. I need to initialize Git first. So git init is the command for that. Okay, so next command is known as git add. So as I said, in the world of programming, programming it is very important to be specific when you are giving instructions to a computer. So basically, when I'm working with Git, I need to specify that what files I want Git to track. So it won't just start tracking all the files in my repository. I need to make sure that Git knows what files I want it to track. So if I want to specify what files I wanted to track, I can use the command git add. So I won't go into much detail. We'll have a demo and I will show you all the commands one by one. So don't worry about it now if you don't understand. Okay, so the next one is known as git status. So git status will show me the status of my working repository. So let's just say I modified a file, I changed some code in my file, or let's say I added a new file. So git status will show me all that info and it will show me that yes, you have changed this file and you have modified this file. This is a new file. I've detected that there's an untracked file. So it will show me all that information. Okay, so the next one is known as git commit. So as I mentioned earlier, you decide when to save your code or basically take a snapshot of your code with this command. So git commit is the command for that. Okay, so the next three commands are more are useful when you're working with a remote repository like GitHub. So what is a remote repository? There are two types of repositories. One is a local repository and the other one is a remote repository. So a remote repository is basically not on your local machine. It's hosted somewhere on the cloud, and GitHub is a really good example of that. As I told you guys earlier, GitHub is a website which allows you to host your repositories online. So if you're working with GitHub, then the next three commands are really important. So git push, first one is git push. It allows you to upload your commit. So after you have saved the state of your code, you have saved your code, you can upload those changes to your remote repository using the git push command. So the next command is known as git pull. So if so, this is more important when you are working in collaboration with other people. And let's just say someone made a commit and they pushed it to the repository. It's a common repository, by the way. Many people are working on it. And if I want those changes to be reflected in my version of the repository as well, I can use the git pull command, and it will basically just pull all the changes from the remote repository and it will reflect them in my copy of that repository. Okay, cool. So the last command that you must know is known as git clone. So basically it allows you to create a copy of any remote repository that you see on GitHub or anywhere else. So you can use this command to create a copy of it in your local machine. So I hope that was clear. And if you guys understood all the commands, then you can say yes in the chat. Or if you did not, then you can ask your doubts in the chat as well. Okay, so it looks like you guys have understood all the commands. So next we are going to talk about installing Git. So Git is available in most of the operating systems. You can say I have mentioned Windows, Mac, and Linux in this slide. And if you are on a Windows or Mac, you can just go to the mentioned website and download it from there. And I will walk you through the download process as well. And if you are on Linux, then if you are on Debian or Ubuntu Linux, then you can just write the mentioned command in your terminal, and it will install Git for you. Or if you are on Fedora, then you can choose either of the commands mentioned on your screen, depending on the version of your Linux. Okay, so that is it for the slides. So now let's just get into uh, actually downloading Git. So just go to Google, and on Google just say Git. Just search Git, and you will see this. you'll see this. So you'll see a lot of results. So I want you guys to go to the first link. And if you open the first link, you will end up on the official Git website. So let's just have a look around and let's just have a look at what it says. So it says that Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. So as I explained you guys earlier, Git is a distributed version control system, and Git is easy to learn. It has a tiny footprint with lightning fast performance. So these are some really important features of Git, and it is very fast, it is very easy to learn, and it makes it one of the most widely used version control systems in the industry. So it outclasses SCM tools like Subversion, CVS, Perforce, and ClearCase. So these are all the alternatives to Git. So they are also version control systems, but Git is so popular that I doubt many of you have heard, many of you have even heard about these alternatives. So if you just scroll down, then you can see a list of companies that uh, that use Git. So there are some really big names in there. There's Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Netflix. They all use Git for their for their development purpose. So let's just download Git now. So you can click on downloads, and depending on your operating system, you can choose either of the option. So since I am on Windows, I'm going to click on Windows. And as you click on Windows, it will automatically download a setup file for you. It's approximately 40 MBs or something. So if you're done downloading, then you can just say yes in the chat. I will wait till then, and I won't download it because I already have it downloaded here on my desktop. So if you guys are done downloading it, then you can just say yes in the chat. Okay, I see many of you have already downloaded it, but let's just make sure that everyone downloads it so that nobody lags behind. Okay, I can see a lot of yeses. So I just want you guys to open up the Git setup. So it's just a normal Windows setup, and just click on run. And when you click on run, you will see something like this. So just click on next. And we are going to stick with the defaults because we are not going to change anything in here because the default settings will work really good for us. So just keep on clicking on next until you reach the screen where it says install instead of next. So if you have reached here, we're using the default settings only. So then just click install, and it will take a while to install Git in your system. So if you are done installing Git, then just let me know in the chat. Just say yes. Okay, I can see a lot of you have already installed Git, and it's still installing for me. I don't know why it's taking so long, but okay. Thanks, Astrologer27 for the compliment. It's not my default desktop, actually. I'm just cleaned everything, cleaned all my stuff up. Otherwise, it's a very unorganized desktop. Okay, so once you guys are done installing Git, you will end up with this screen. It says completing the Git setup wizard. So over here, I want you guys to uncheck view release notes because I don't want to see the release notes. And you can check on launch Git bash. So just check on launch Git bash and just click on next. And once you guys do that, you will have a terminal window like this pop up. So this is just like any other normal terminal, but this is known as Git bash. So basically, it's used while you're working with Git, and it makes working with Git more easier. So let's just understand what this terminal is like. So I will just expand it for you guys. Okay. I hope the terminal text is readable enough for you guys. If you guys want me to increase the size, then you can just say it in the chat. Or if it's okay, then you can say yes. Okay, so I guess it's visible enough. Okay, so let's just talk about this terminal first, and you will see a bunch of stuff written over here. And as you can see, first it says JUG09. So what is JUG09? It's the name of my root directory. So for you, it must be something else depending on your username. So the first word before the @ sign over here is the name of my root directory. Followed by the @ sign is the name of your machine. So I'm currently on an Acer machine, so it's showing me the name of my machine. And then there is a tilde sign over here. So the tilde sign basically means that you are in your root directory. So let's just go back and let's just remember all the commands I showed you before. And the first one was ls. So what ls does is it will show me a list of all the files and folders that are present inside my root directory. So I'll just say ls, and as you can see, there's a long list of files and folders that is basically present in my root directory. Okay, so now let's just confirm that Git is installed properly in your system. So if you are able to open Git bash, then obviously it has installed properly. But if you are on command prompt or some other terminal, you can just say git space --version. So if you press enter, it will show you the Git version you are currently on. So if you get Git version 2.29 or whatever, it means that you have installed Git correctly, and now you are good to go. Okay. So this is it. Like this is the basic explanation for the Git bash terminal. So I'm just going to close this terminal window now, and I'm going to create a new folder here. Okay, so whatever I'm going to do now, it's not necessary for you guys to follow, but just observe carefully what I'm doing. And then after this, we will finally push your snake game that you just created to GitHub. So I'm going to show you guys a demo first. So it's not necessary for you guys to follow, but just observe carefully. If you guys want to follow, then you can. You are allowed to do so, but just observe and understand. Okay, so I've created a new folder over here, and I'm going to rename it, and let's just call it Git demo. Okay, so I'm going to open this folder now. As you can see, it's an empty folder. There's nothing in it. So now I want to open a Git bash terminal inside this folder. So it's really simple. You can just right click, and you'll get an option to Git bash here. So just click on it, and it will open up the terminal again for you. This is a Git bash terminal, and just notice that it says /desktop/git demo. So what this means is that you're currently inside the git demo folder, and that's what we wanted. So cool. So okay, so now let's just create a Python file in this. So the command for creating a file was touch. So let's just say touch followed by the file name. So I'm going to call it hello.py and enter. So you will see a Python file will be created. Now you can just go to your Visual Studio Code. You can just go to your Visual Studio Code and let it open up. And you can just open this folder that we just created. So I'm just going to say open folder. And I'm going to open it's on my desktop. So I'm going to open the Git demo folder now. And as you can see, it contains the hello.py file which I just created. So it's an empty Python file. Let's just write some code in it. So let's just write a simple print statement for now. I'm just going to say print hello and welcome to this Git tutorial. And I'm going to save it. Okay, so we're done. So we created a Python file with just a print statement. And okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to uh, we are going to initialize Git in this. So for the command for initializing an empty Git repository is called git init. So let's just write it down in the terminal. So git init, and you can just write git init and you can press enter. And it says that it has initialized an empty Git repository in the Git demo folder. But I have the folder open here and I can't see anything. Nothing has changed. So what has happened? So that's not true. Something has happened. So just go to your view tab and click on and check hidden items. So if you see, then you will see a hidden .git folder in the in the in the folder you just initialized an empty Git repository. So this is the folder which contains all the files and folders that Git uses to track your files. So don't worry about the stuff inside this folder because even I don't know what it does. We just need to know how to drive a car. We don't have to know how the car works basically. So let's just not worry about that. I just wanted to show you guys that what happens when you initialize an empty Git repository. Okay. So if you're done, so let's just check the status of this repository now. As I mentioned earlier, the git status command is used to check the status of your working directory. So I'm going to write git status and I'm going to press enter. And as you can see, a bunch of lines have popped up in my terminal. And the first line says I'm on branch master. Okay, so just notice before we go any further, just notice that it says after I initialize an empty Git repository, it says master, it says master in parentheses. So what this means is that we are currently on the master branch and it's the default branch in Git. So whenever you initialize an empty repository, you will start with the master branch. Okay, that's cool if you understood. So let's just check the status. If we check the status, it says we are on branch master and we haven't made any commits yet. So obviously because we haven't made any commits, we're showing that. And in the third line, it's telling me that it has detected some untracked files. So there's only one file for now. It's called hello.py and it is untracked. So it is asking me to add the file in order to, so that Git can track the file. So let's just add that file. So I'm just going to clear this terminal. And I'm just going to add the hello.py file that we just created. So the command for that is git add. So I'm going to say git add followed by the file name. So for me, it is hello.py. So I'm going to say git add hello.py and I'm going to press enter. and you will see that nothing happened. But if you check the status again, you can see that it says that it is now tracking the hello.py file, and first it was in red. This hello.py was in red, but now it's in green. So basically this means whenever you see any file in the green color, it means that the file is in the staging area. So what is the staging area? So a staging area is the area when you add a file and those files are ready to be committed. So the state before committing a file is known as the staging area. So basically hello.py is staged for commit now, and we can commit it whenever we want. So let's make our first commit now. Okay. So I'm going to say git commit. So there are two ways of making a commit. First, I'm going to show you the long and the complicated method. So you can just simply say git commit and press enter, and you will come to something like this. You will see a bunch of lines, and it says that please enter the commit message for your changes. So as I mentioned earlier, whenever you make a commit, you need to specify a commit message along with the commit, which adds meaning to the commit. So basically what it's telling me is that it will ignore anything that is followed by the hash symbol. So it will ignore it basically. And so whenever I want to write my commit message, I can just remove the hash, so that line won't be ignored, and I can use it as my commit message. So let's just okay, wait a second. Um, so let's just go to this line. It already by default it has chosen initial commit as a default message. So we also want to use initial commit as our commit message, because while working with Git, it is a very common practice to to make your first commit message as initial commit or first commit. So we're just going to go to this line, and I'm going to delete the hash symbol. And as you can see that it is turned gray now. So basically this line will now be treated as our commit message. So now I'm just going to press enter, and I'm going to say colon WQ. And with this command, I can just exit this, and as you can see, it says git commit. So it has so we have made our first commit. Congratulations, guys. And it is showing me the commit message along with the commit. So the commit message for this commit was initial commit. So it's showing me that. And then you can see that it says that how many files I've changed. So there was only one file, which is hello.py. So it is telling me that I have changed one file and there's one line of code inserted. So we just added one line of code here. So it is showing me that. So that's quite accurate. Okay. So let's just assume that I'm working on a website and I want to create a landing page for that. So let's just create an HTML file for that, for our landing page. So I'm just going to call it home. So it's going to be my home page. So I'm just going to say touch home.html, and I'm going to press enter. And as you can see, HTML file with the name home will be created. And in my visual code, I'm just going to open that file, and I'm just going to write some HTML in there. I hope all of you know HTML, but don't worry, you don't need to worry about it anyway. So I'm just going to write some HTML. I'm going to say my app in the title, and in the body, I'm going to make an H1 which says um, welcome to the home page. So that's done now. And let's just go back to our terminal now. And let's just check the status of this repository again. So the command for that was git status. And I'm going to press enter now. And as you can see, it is showing me that it has found another untracked file, which is home.html, which is quite true because we just created home.html and we haven't added it yet. So it will show me that it is an untracked file. Also, just to show you guys another thing, I'm just going to go back to my hello.py file and I'm just going to make a change. Let's just say I want to add two numbers. So x is 10, y is 20, and I'm going to print the sum of these both variables. And so I made a change into my Python file as well. So now if I go here, go to my bash terminal, and if I check the status again, so Aryan Shekhar is asking that will we have to link the py file in HTML. So no, I told you before, don't worry about this. This is just an example. You guys only have to follow along when I will show you guys how to, push your snake game to GitHub. So you can just observe for now. So okay, so I'm going to say git status again, and as you can see, it is showing me that it has detected a modification in the hello.py file, and there's an untracked file which it showed me before as well, and home.html is untracked. Okay, so now can anyone tell me what step we need to do next? Just write the command that we have to use next in order to make Git track all these files. Just write the command in the chat. Let's see who knows. So I can see Espers Kite. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. As said, git add. So he's right. We are going to use the git add command. So the syntax for the git add command was git add followed by the file name, and I need to do it again and again for every file that I want to add. But this won't be efficient when I'm working with hundreds of files, and I'm not going to write the add command 100 times. So I'm going to show you guys a shortcut method for that. So you can, so if you write git add followed by a dot, I mean git add space dot, you can basically you can basically add all the files which are untracked at once. So I'm going to say git add space dot, and I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to check the status again. And as you can see that it has added both the files at once. So if you are working with a lot of files, you can just say git add space dot, and it will add all the files at once. So you don't have to, write that command again and again for each file. Okay. So now let's just say I want to add a login feature to my website. So let's just create a login page for that. So I'm going to say touch login.html, and in my VS Code, I'm going to open up that file, and we are just going to copy the code from the home file and just put it in the login.html file. But we'll just change the h1, and we'll just say welcome to the login page. So we did that. And now we're just going to check the status again. And as you can see, there's an untracked. Okay. And I'm just going to check the status again. So it will show me that there's an untracked file. We just created login.html right now. So obviously it's going to be untracked. Okay, so just imagine this scenario, guys. Now I'm working on an app, and that app it deals with a lot of confidential user information. So if I will commit my changes now, so it will push everything to GitHub, and on GitHub basically everyone can see my code, and they can also access that sensitive user information which is present along with my project files. So what do you do if you want to, make Git ignore the confidential information file? So I will show you guys how to make Git ignore a certain file. So first we'll just create a text file which contains some confidential user information. So I'm just going to create let's just call it data, and it's going to be a text file, so .txt, and this empty text file will be created. And now in my Visual Studio Code, I'm going to open it and I'm going to write some passwords and stuff basically. So, so this is my file which contains all the user data. So I'm going to make the first username as my own name, and the password for that is going to be 1234. You can see it's such a secure password. No one can crack it. Okay. So let's just say there are a bunch of other users as well. So let's just call them user2 and user3 and user4. Okay. So I've created a file which contains all the sensitive user information related to my project, and I want Git to ignore that file. So right now, if I will check the status, then you can see that Git is not ignoring that file. It is showing me that data.txt is untracked. So in order to ignore certain files, you need to create another file which is known as .gitignore. So to create that file, you can just say touch space .gitignore. And once you do that, it will again create an empty text file, but it is not a normal text file. It is a special file with Git identifier. So as you can see, even on your in your VS Code, you will get the Git icon next to the .gitignore file. So how does this gitignore file work? You just open up the gitignore file, and inside the gitignore file, just simply write the name of the file that you want Git to ignore. So in our case, it is data.txt. So I'm just going to say data.txt, and that's it. We have added the name of the file in this gitignore file, and basically what Git will do now is it will ignore the data.txt file. So let's just save it and let's just look at the status again. And as you can see, it is not showing me the data.txt file as untracked anymore. So it is completely ignoring the data.txt file, and it won't be included in my commits also. Okay, so let's just make our second commit now. Okay, so so first of all, before making a commit, I need to add these files. So as I showed you previously, the command for adding all the files at once was git add space dot, and I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to check the status again. And as you can see, all the files have been staged. So basically what staging means is that all the files that you can see in green are ready to be committed. Okay, cool. So let's just commit now. So previously I showed you uh, a long and complicated way of committing your changes, but it is a very I personally feel that it is really inconvenient, and it is not so it's not an efficient way to commit your changes. So let's just look at another way of committing your changes. So this is the second way. So for that you can just say git commit and space hyphen m followed by the commit message, which will be in quotes, which it will be in double quotes. So I'm going to write my commit message. So what should I write my so what should my commit message be? So I added the login.html file. I added a login feature to my website. So let's just call it add login feature. So understand this, guys. Understand the commit command that I'm showing you right now. It's a one line command, and you can commit changes in just one line of command. So it is git commit hyphen m and the git and sorry and the commit message in double quotes. So after you're done typing this, you can just press enter, and as you can see, it is showing me the commit message. We have changed 4 files now. As you can see, login, home, hello, and get ignored. Those are the 4 files. And we have inserted 22 lines of code, and 1 line of code was deleted. So as I told you guys, Git is very accurate when it comes to tracking your files. And so it will track each and every single thing about your files, be it whatever lines of code that you added, or how many lines of code you deleted. It will note everything. Okay, cool. So I think we're done with the demo folder now. So we're done with this. We're done with the Git basics. So I'm just going to close everything for now, and we're going to we're going to go to GitHub now. So this is the second part of this session, which is knowing, which is an introduction to GitHub. So I'm going to go to github.com. You guys can also log on to github.com. And once you do that, you will reach this page. So this is the landing page for GitHub. So what is GitHub? So I mentioned earlier, GitHub is a code hosting platform which is used for version control and collaboration. So basically, you can host all your projects on GitHub, you can host all your repositories on GitHub, and it allows people to collaborate and make changes to your repositories, and you can also collaborate in other people's projects. So it is basically a community and also a platform for hosting your code. So once you reach this site, I want you guys to sign up. So just pick a username first, and you can write your email in there, and you can pick a password. Okay, so do that. And I will just show you guys what you will end up with after you go to the next page. Okay, so after you enter your email and username and stuff, and after you click on sign up for GitHub, you will reach this page. So this page is nothing but a simple verification test to make sure you are a human and not a bot or anything. So it's a simple puzzle. You just need to solve it. And after you're done solving that puzzle, you can just check on email preferences. If you want updates from GitHub, then you can check it or you can uncheck it, whatever you want. And then after you're done, you can just click on join a free plan. So if everyone is done doing the verification test, they can say yes in the chat. Okay, so if you guys already have a GitHub account, you can just log on to that account and wait, because if someone doesn't have an account already, we must wait for them to create an account. Okay, so I'm seeing some yeses. Okay, so now click on join a free plan. Once you click on join a free plan, you will come to this screen, and basically this screen, it will ask you a bunch of questions about yourself. So first question is what kind of work you do. So since I'm a student, and I'm sure most of you are as well, you can click on student, and if you scroll down, it will ask you how much programming experience do you have. So based on how much experience you have, you can choose the appropriate option. And down below you will see, it will ask you what stuff do you like, why do you want to use GitHub. So there are a bunch of options. Again, you can choose any three. So personally, I've chosen I want to learn how to code, I want to learn Git and GitHub, and I want to host a project. So basically that is what we are doing in this workshop. So I'm going to click on those three. And if you scroll even below, it will ask you what languages and frameworks you are interested in. So personally, I'm going to opt for Python and JavaScript. So the purpose for this is that GitHub will later, show you recommendations in your Explore tab based on the languages and frameworks that you have chosen. It could be anything. You can also select companies that you are interested in. And once you're done, you can just click on complete setup. And after you're done, it will take you to this page. So basically on this page you need to verify your email address. So just go to your email real quick, and you will receive an email. If you have enter your email correctly, then you will receive an email from GitHub, and in that email there will be a link to verify your account. So just go to your email and verify your account. And once you are done verifying your account, you will come to this page, and it will say that your email was verified. So if you have reached this page, then congratulations, you have created a verified account on GitHub. And if you guys are done creating an account, then you can just say yes in the chat. Okay, so it looks like everyone has uh, reached this page. They have created an account successfully. Good job, guys. So now I want you guys to click on create a repository. So once you do that, let me just open my GitHub real quick. So once you do that, you'll come to this page. And okay. So once you do that, you will come to a similar looking page. And this is basically the create a new repository page for GitHub. So so okay, so I just want you guys to minimize this page for now. Just open a create a new repository page, and I want you guys to minimize this for now. And you can see on your desktop you must have the files that you use to create your snake game. I have two files. There's one score file. There's one scores file which is a text document which contains my high score, and there's another snake file which contains all my snake game code. So okay, so I'm going to create a new folder now, and let's just call it snake game. And I'm going to open this folder, and I'm going to take both these files and I'm going to put them inside this folder. So as you can see, I have added both these files into the snake game folder which I just created. Now let's just open a get bash terminal over here. So the method of doing that was right click and click on get bash here. So it will open up a get bash terminal in this folder basically. So I will just enlarge it for you guys. I hope the terminal text is visible clearly. Okay, so now the first step that we need to do to add a repository to Git. Can someone tell me in the chat what was the first command that we write? Okay, so I see you guys have understood it well, and yeah, that's correct. Git init is the command that we are going to use, and I'm going to press enter now. So as you can see, it will tell me that it has initialized an empty Git repository. I walked you guys through this before as well. And the hidden .git folder will be created, which contains all the files that Git uses to track your files basically. So now let's just quickly add both these files. So first I'm going to check the status of this repository. And as you can see, there are two untracked files that are written in red. So the command for adding both these files at once was git add space dot. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to check my status again. So so you guys can follow along as well. This is we are basically adding our snake game to GitHub. So I hope you guys are also following along. And once you do that, you're going to you press enter. And as you can see, both the file names will be in green, and it means that we have added these files for staging, so they are ready to be committed now. Okay, cool. So let's just commit these changes real quick. So the command for that was git commit space -m followed by the commit message in double quotes. So since this is my first commit, I'm going to keep my commit message as initial commit. I'm going to press enter now. And as you can see, it has made those commits, and I made my first commit in the snake game repository, and it's showing me that so two files have been changed and 87 lines of code has been inserted. Okay, cool. So it is tracking my files. Now we made the commits, and now we are ready to add this repository to GitHub. So I asked you guys to minimize the new repository page earlier. So I want you guys to go back to that page. And in the repository name, this is basically the repository creation page. This is the page from where you can create a new repository. So for the repository name, we can call it Snake Game. I'm going to call it Snake Game. And just note that you can't use any spaces in the repository name. So I recommend you guys to use hyphens. So if that name is available, then then GitHub will tell you that the name is available. And then the next field is description. Description could be anything about your app or project or whatever it is. So for us, it is a snake game. So I'm just going to say a simple Python-based snake game, and that is going to be my description. Okay, so in the next part, it is asking me to choose between a private and public repository. So I recommend you guys to keep it public for now, because if you want to add your repositories in your resume or in your portfolio, then it is recommended to keep it public so that everyone can see it. And so I'm going to go with a public repository for now. Okay. And the next step, it is asking me to create a README file. It is asking me to add a .getignore file, and it is asking me to choose a license. Okay. So the first one is adding a README file. So you can skip this for now. It's not important. It's not necessary. So I'm just going to skip it for now. And then it is asking me to add a .getignore file. So we don't have anything that we want Git to ignore in our repository. So we are going to skip this as well. And the next step is choosing a license. So I don't think you will require a license for the Snake Game code. So we will leave it unchecked as well. But if you are working on you're working on a big project and you don't want other people to so if you want to create some certain rules for other people as to how they can use your code, or as to how they can uh, make use of your code and change it, you can choose a license. But we don't require a license for this. So I'm just going to I'm not going to check any of these, and I'm just going to click on create repository. And once you click on create repository, just say yes in the chat. You will come to this page. If you do, then say yes in the chat. Okay, so looks like everyone has reached this page. Okay, so now if you notice the URL on your browser, this is the address to your repository. So basically your repository will be hosted on this URL. So you can note that URL. Okay, so next, so let us see what is on our screen now. So whatever is on my screen are just some steps to add connect your local repository with the remote repository that you just created. So we just created our remote repository, and now all that is left to be done is we have to connect our local files with this repository. So you will see that there's an SSH key over here. This long URL that you will see, it is known as the SSH key, and basically this is what Git uses to connect your to identify your repository and then connect your local repository to the remote one. So what I'm going to do is okay. So also down below you can see some steps that are mentioned. So you can create a new repository in your local machine, or you can push an existing repository from the command line. But so let's just see what's there over here. and it is asking me to do initialize git first, then add a readme, and then make the first commit. But we have already done this much. Okay, I showed you guys earlier. We've already made our first commit, so we are already done with this part. So we can skip to this. We already have an existing repository that we want to add. So I just want you guys to copy this first line of code. Oh, sorry, it's a command. So I just want you guys to copy it. Just copy it and then go back to your git bash terminal and just paste it over here. And you can just press enter. And after you did that, after you press enter, so we have successfully connected our remote repository with our local repository. And now on the you can go back to the GitHub website, and the next step is choosing the branch. So for this, we are going to switch to the main branch now. You can use master as well. It doesn't really make a difference as long as you don't push to a different branch as to compare to what branch you are on currently. So for the sake of simplicity, because it is mentioned over here to switch to the main branch, we are also going to do the same. And I'm going to copy this code command and I'm going to paste it in my terminal again. And notice it says master over here right now, but after I press enter, it will say that I am on main branch. So we have changed the branch to main. Okay. So we are on the main branch now. We have changed our branch from master to main. And you can go back to the GitHub website. And the final step in this process is to push all the commits that you have made to the remote repository. So you can just copy this command as well. You just copy it and you can go back to your terminal and you can paste it here and press enter and wait for a while. It will push everything to your GitHub repository, and as you can see it says done. So if it says done, as long as you don't get any error which will be in red, you have successfully pushed all of your commits to GitHub. So if you just go back to your GitHub page and if you just refresh this page, you will see that you have successfully added your files, the Python file as well as the score file on GitHub. So congratulations, guys! If you get to this screen, you have successfully added your repository on GitHub. So if you guys are done, if you guys get this, if you guys reach this page, then say yes in the chat. Okay, so I can see a lot of yeses in the chat. Good job, guys! You have successfully added your repository to GitHub. And now let's just look at GitHub now, and I will show you guys what this is about. I will just show you guys some simple things. So you can go to settings, and there are a bunch of setting options that you can choose from. So in the first one, which is options, you can change the repository name as well. So if you do change your repository name, then you also need to update it on your local machine with the help of Git. And you can read more about it on Google, or you can, there's a command for that as well. Next is, if you just scroll down here, you can change the visibility of your repository. So I think someone asked in the chat if we could change our repository to private later. So the answer is yes, you can. So right now our repository is public, but you can make it private as well. Okay, so next is ownership. So if you're working in an organization, if you want another user to be the author of that repository, you can transfer the ownership as well. and you can archive this repository and you can delete this repository as well. Okay, so now if you go back to the code, this page, and if you click on commits, so it will show you a list of all the commits that you have made over time. So we have only made one commit, so it's telling me that commits on November 1, 2020. It's only one because I've only added one commit so far, and it was added 10 minutes ago. But I will show you another repository, and there are like this is an app I made a few months ago, and if you see that there are 10 commits on this one, and if you just go to commits, you can see all the commits that you have made according to the date. So I made the initial commit on July 3, and then I added a start script to my application. I added an about page, I added an info page. So basically the headings that you see over here, it means that it is the commit message basically, and it is showing me that I made a commit on this date and what it was about. So you can see all the commits on GitHub with this button. But let's say you are in your terminal, you are in this Git Bash terminal. So how do you see the list of your commits, the list of the commits that you made? So there's this command called git log. So you can just say git log, and once you press enter, it will show you all the commits that you have made so far. So let's just go to the demo folder that we just made. I'm going to open git bash terminal here, and in here I'm just going to say git log. So as you can see, it is showing me all the commits that we made. So first of all, I made the initial commit, and then I added a login feature to my website. So it's showing me that I have so it is showing me the other commit that I made. So if you observe carefully, there will be a long string of numbers and characters associated with every commit. So this is a special code which has been generated when the commit is made. So let's say if you want to go back to a previous version, you can use this code. I won't show you guys how to do that exactly because it is out of the scope of this session, but you can just use this code to go back to any previous version. Also, I think we have reached the end of this session now, and this is as long as I would like to go with Git and GitHub. And if you guys are interested in learning more about Git and GitHub, you can go to this website. It's known as guides.github.com. You can just Google it as well. So there are a lot of articles on this site, and basically it's they are articles about Git and GitHub. So let's just say if you want to get started with Git, so there's an article. It's called Git Handbook. It basically has all the information related to Git and how to get started. And there are also complex things like working with branches, and there's also an article on forking and stuff like that. So if you guys want to learn more, then you can look up a YouTube tutorial. There are tons of that on YouTube, or you can just go to this website. There are lots of useful articles over here. So I think this is as long. So I think that's all I wanted to cover for this session. And let's just go back to the snake repository that we just created. And if you go to your user page, so this is what your user page looks like. It will show you all the repositories that you have made, and it will also show you all the commits that you made over. It will show you all the commits that you made in a timeline manner. So it's showing me all the months and all the commits that I made. And this is another timeline. It is showing my activity. So you can see all that information over here. And in the repositories tab, you can see all the repositories that you have created. So we created this snake game right now. And also another thing to notice is that it will show you all the languages that you used for making your project. So right now it's 100% Python because it is completely based on Python. So that's obvious. Okay, so yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to cover. And so you guys learned the basics of Git today and how to work with Git, and you finally post your snake game to GitHub. I hope you guys understood everything, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And now we have a special we have a contest for you guys. So Sachit will tell you guys more about it. So over to Sachit now.
All right. So, for those of you who have the Snake game up and running, you could make some really cool changes like have custom characters to represent the snake or the food, have really cool borders around the canvas, or just off the top of my head, have the snake hit the border and come out of the other end, just like in Snake 2, or improve and optimize the code with a dot append rather than the dot insert method that we used earlier, and upload all of this to GitHub and share this in the feedback form that we have for you in the chat down below. While it's not compulsory to fill, we will be picking up the top performers on the basis of how creative you guys can get with the Snake game. You have 24 hours to fill this feedback form for the second day. It'll be available in the chat, so if you look down below, you'll have that. Above all, it's important for you to learn the basics of Python and Git and GitHub. And if we have been able to help, we're really glad we had the opportunity to do so.
Acha, acha, acha. Thank you, Sachit and Jugal, for the amazing sessions. As all of you can see on the screen, if you want to submit your Snake Game repository, the information that you need and the instructions are on the screen right now. It is not compulsory, but the best performers will be getting some amazing prizes. So I would recommend that you do follow the guidelines and fill in the feedback form. You can find a link in the chat box right now. Yes, the form will be opening at 2 p.m. and will be closing at 2 p.m. tomorrow. So it's not accepting responses right now, but please build your repositories and by then it should be accepting responses. 2 p.m. on the 1st of November to 2 p.m. on the 2nd of November. Thank you for attending, everybody. And if you'd like to know more about any events from MLSA SRM, please, there's a part in the form, there's a question in the form which asks you if you'd like to be added to our emailing list. So please select that option and you'll be the first to know about future events. It was great having you all. Thank you so much.